Good evening, family. Welcome to part two of my inflation video. Let's kick it off. I think I could get through it this time. This is like the fourth try, but I'm going to make it happen, determined in order to do so. If you haven't seen the part one that I did, I think a few days ago, I would recommend watching that first. And that will be a good primer for what I'm about to go through tonight. I'm going to go into a little more of the numbers on the technical aspect and get us thinking more in abstract with regards to inflation rather than more concrete like we were doing in video one, where we were looking at assets that are inflated. The abstract side is going to be the income side. And I'm going to start off with the outline. Let's get going. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to 1913 and see what 1 ounce of gold was able to buy us, and then compare and contrast that with 1 ounce of gold in 2024. From that, I'm going to move into, like I said, the more abstract items on the income side using an inflation calculator. If you've never used an inflation calculator before, or if you've never seen the value of it, hopefully that will change by the time the end of this presentation rolls around. I'm going to look at inflated income, why we are struggling in 2024. I'm going to look at what percentage of your income has been deteriorated since 1913. And then also, what will your income look like during retirement? I think if we look at present day, a little bit into the past, and then a little bit into the future, we can piece this together, and it'll be one puzzle that will look a lot clearer rather than the individual pieces that we end up looking at when we're putting a puzzle together. Then I'm going to wrap it up with a summary on present assets versus future assets. And so I want to get us thinking in what are we going to do down the road? What are we going to do 5, 10, 15 years from now? So let's get started with this. Now, in the last video, I had a quote, a bunch of different quotes, but I want to start off with Lenin, leader of the Bolsheviks himself. Um, Lenin in 1919, only 6 years after our own Federal Reserve was created, and a pretty good inkling on what created inflation. And his quote goes as such: hundreds of thousands of ruble notes from Russia are being issued daily by our treasury. This is done with the deliberate intention of destroying the value of money as a means of payment. So even in the early days of central banking, Lenin could see this. At least in Russia, they were issuing it by the treasury back then. And about 6 years later, a very similar quote, famous, you may have heard of this, you may not have, is it is well enough that the people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. That was in 1925 by Henry Ford. I don't think anybody is going to mistake Henry Ford for Lenin. I think they're two completely different individuals, two completely different men, two completely different ideologies, but they both understood the power of having some kind of central authority dilute the payment system and dilute the purchasing power, even in the early days of this. We're just feeling the effects of it now, 100 years later. So with that, I'm going to get into what can 1 ounce of gold purchase. It could be a coin, it could be a bar, it could be anything that equals 1 ounce of gold. But I'm going to look at 1913 purchasing power of gold, and then also 2024, because they were priced differently in 1913 versus 2024. In 1913, gold was priced at about $18.93 an ounce, almost $19 basically. And I just checked the gold recently in 2024, and it's worth $2,334 an ounce. So big wave of difference. So what I'm going to look at is I'm going to look at a couple of goods that you could purchase with gold in 1913 versus today. And then I'm going to switch into a little bit more of the abstract on the income side. So in 1913, you could buy a brand new men's wool suit for $18. So if you had 1 ounce of gold in a coin or a bar or whatever in 1913, you could walk into a department store, hand them the gold, they would give you a brand new men's wool suit. Now in 2024, I picked Armani out because I think, there's men and women suits in Armani, and they are very expensive. And there is a range, in the low end, it's about 1,400, high end, it's over 3,000. But I found on an average, a men's Armani suit in 2024 is about $2,300. So again, one gold coin weighing 1 ounce could buy you a brand new suit in 1913 and also in 1924. I'm sorry, 2024. Time travel here. I don't know what year it is. I also looked at some appliances, and brand new in 1913, you could get a washing machine, as crude as it may have been back in 1913, for $10, and a stovetop oven for about 7 on average. So between the two of them, at $17 total, gold 1 ounce of a gold coin could purchase both a washing machine and a stovetop oven. So then I looked at 2024 and the prices there as well. Obviously, a much better modern version of a washing machine. I picked the front loaders because I think they're a little bit better anyway. On average, about $1,000, and then also a full size oven instead of just a stovetop one for about 900 on average. Again, $1,900, almost $2,000 total. 1 ounce of a gold coin could make a purchase for both a washing machine and an oven in 1913 and also 2024. Now, the next thing I looked at was income. This is where the abstract comes in. And about a week and a half worth of wages in 1913 is about $19. Again, 1 ounce of gold could pay for a week and a half worth of wages in 1913. That's about what? 40 hours one week, 20 hours the next, 60 hours worth of work. 1 ounce of gold is worth 60 hours worth of work in 1913. And if you know something interesting, I took median income, divided it by 52 or 2080, and then multiplied it by 60 hours. 1 gold coin would roughly get you about a week and a half worth of wages even today. Now, I think it's worthwhile looking at this to ask some very important questions. And the first one that comes up in our mind is, why does 1 ounce of gold buy you the same shit in 1913 as it does in 2024? Is there something magic about gold that makes this happen? Second question, why does it take thousands of more dollars to purchase the same items in 1913 versus 2024? Are these items better? Yeah, one could argue that washing machine, probably modern day, is a lot better than a washing machine in 1913. It was probably a hand crank one. And the stovetop oven, you want a full size oven, probably better than a stovetop oven. And if you're arguing that they're better quality and that's why they cost more nowadays, that's a fair argument to make. But a suit, you wear it; an oven, you cook shit in it; and a washing machine, you just clean clothes. So if they are better nowadays, is it fair to ask, are they thousands of dollars better? And if you had a washing machine and a choice between two of them, and one of them was even just $50 or $100 versus over 1,000, which one would you pick? I think the answer to that is a little bit obvious. And I think it's, just looking at this system, when you price goods and then also wages and income in 1913 versus 2024 dollars, and then also price it in gold, I think it's possible to just start to ask some humbling questions. And the first question is, if the same amount of gold can purchase the same shit 110 years apart, yet it takes thousands of dollars more to purchase the same shit 110 years apart, do you think there's something wrong with the gold system, or do you think that there's something wrong with the dollar system? And what I'm trying to do, at least with this screen here, is transition our thinking from inflation being only affecting cost of goods to shifting to how it affects loss of income. That will be the central theme of this video as we move forward. So look at this, soak it in, and I will continue. So if you've never used an inflation calculator, if you've never seen the purpose of it or no value in it, hopefully, like I said, I'm going to change that thinking, at least for today. And one of the things that I want to look at with regards to income and inflation is, I want to take you back. This is where some of the homework, and if you have a pen and paper, now's the time to get it out. I want to take you back to your entry level into your professional vocation or field or whatever you got in. If you change jobs every year, no big deal. That happens. If you change careers every 5 years, that happens as well. But when you're thinking about what you decided to do for a living, there was a dollar figure attached to that per year that you probably felt comfortable with earning, that could take care of your lifestyle, take care of your budgeting, and also have you put some money away, hopefully, for the future. Um, I want to take you back there because I'm going to kind of weave you through my story, but I'm going to use my numbers for this, but I want you to also plug in your numbers for this as well. Just Google inflation calculator, and the website is usinflationcalculator.com, I believe. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you back to when I got into my profession, which was teaching, was 2004. So it was 20 years ago. Now I had some good jobs before that. I owned a business before that. Made decent money doing that. I had no problem, but it wasn't something I was passionate about. I knew going into teaching I wasn't going to make a lot of money, but I had a number in my head about around 36,000 a year, which is about 3,000 a month gross. So I figured I'm a kid in my 20s. I don't really live an exorbitant lifestyle then or now. Um, 36,000 would take care of everything that I would need to do, but I would definitely go into work each day loving what I would do and actually be excited to go to work. So when I was able to get into the field, I was able to negotiate, not really negotiate, but I ended up with about 48,000 as my entry level salary as an instructor at the college level. I was 26, got my first classroom, was very excited. What they did was they gave me a range, and within that range, I told them I'd meet them halfway between that range. My thinking at the time is I didn't want to go at the top end of that range, and then 3 months later, they're looking for somebody else that will do that cheaper. I really wanted this job. I really wanted to teach. It was my life's goal and my life's dream and my passion. So 36,000 was my number, but I was making 48. So I was in my mind swimming in cash. 48,000 was plenty. And I could have stayed at that job at that salary right up until today for 20 years. Went into work every day, taught students because I loved doing it. I took a little bit of a different career arc, getting promoted, moving up in the proprietary education system, owning my own business. I went that route, and I don't blame anybody for wanting to do that or being upwardly mobile or wanting to take on more responsibility. There's nothing wrong with doing that. However, the purpose of this is to show what about those people that are just happy doing what they're doing for whatever salary they feel like negotiating for. That's the purpose of this one here. And the way we figured this out, I want to show what my entry level salary was in 2004 and what kind of lifestyle I would need today, or what kind of salary I would need to negotiate today in order to make that same 48 grand I was making in my 20s entry level. So if we're wondering and asking ourselves why we're struggling, I'm hoping that this will explain why. So when you get to the inflation calculator, you're going to go to, they've got three boxes, two on the left, one on the right. The two on the left are years you're going to put in, like a year range or a date range. And the one on the right is the money you're going to put in to show what that money looks like in between those two date ranges. So on the top left box, you're going to put in the year of your first professional job. If it was 1995, put 1995. For me, it's 2004. If it was 2012 for you, whatever it was that you decided to do as a professional. On the bottom left box, you're going to put this year, 2024. So you're going to see the range on this between 2004 and 2024. And then you're going to enter your entry level salary into the right box in US dollars. Now, why are we doing this? As I mentioned, we're going to demonstrate what salary you would need today to match your entry level salary when you entered your field. In my case, it was teaching. So on this case, you can see the two left boxes, 2004 to 2024. On the right box, you can see 48,600. That was the salary that I negotiated when I first entered into my field of teaching. And when you hit the calculate button, if I was going to go back today and say, you know what, let me get out of the rat race. I just want to go back to teaching. I'll even negotiate my original salary that I had in 2004. The only thing I didn't realize is that inflation has passed me by in the interstate for the past 20 years. I would have to negotiate an $80,000 plus year salary to enjoy the same lifestyle I did at age 26 when I first got into my profession. Now, how many teachers do you know making 80 grand? Except if you're like in the Northeast in Union Territory, where they can't get fired for all the stupid shit that they do up there. And then on top of that, their whole pay grade is based on their bachelor's degree, master's degree, professional degree, and how many years. So they keep going up in salary, regardless of their merit, regardless of whether they've earned it or not. Those are probably about the only ones probably making 80 grand or more. in a market teachers don't get paid anything, and definitely don't get paid 80,000. You're gonna have to go into management and definitely go into managing managers on top of that, and maybe even to the top of the food chain, above to campus president level, even to start making six figures, even to get and match a salary that I had as a 26-year-old kid in 2004, my first job teaching. So looking at this is what inflation has done. This is why we're struggling, because the money you think that you're earning, that you're doing well with year after year after year, ends up getting inflated to the point where you can't live the same lifestyle you had even just 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago, never mind 20. So look at this, soak this in. I'm going to do another little round of this, and we're going to look at this a little bit differently. So there's a good segue into why we're struggling, at least answering that question. Now, part two, I'm going to ask another question: is what percentage of your income has been deteriorated? So we're almost going to flip the script a little bit, and we're not going to look at what today's salary would be that I'd have to negotiate. Instead, I'm going to look at what today's salary of my entry level profession at 48.6 that I negotiated at age 26, what kind of lifestyle that would have given me in 2004. Basically, how much of my income has been lost technically. So we're going to flip it. We're going to enter 2024 in the top left box, and we're going to enter the year of a first professional job in the bottom left box. Do your own numbers and think about this. This is where the homework comes in. I'm just going to show you my numbers and how I did it and how I was thinking about it. And then we're going to enter the monthly yearly salary into the right box in US dollars. Now, why are we doing this? I want to demonstrate the percentage of your salary that was lost, scratch that, stolen, since your entry as a professional. Our income and our salary isn't exactly a pair of friggin' car keys that we lose on the way back from the bar on a Saturday night. Our income has been stolen through inflation. And I showed you in the last video what inflation is. It is too much money pumped into an economy chasing too few goods, devaluing the dollars that we hold. This is theft in a grand scale. I'm going to show you what that looks like on the next page. So my entry level salary in 2004, because of inflation, literally, if I wanted to just keep the same job as a teacher for 20 years, don't give me a raise. I love what I do. This is what I want to do. 48,000 is more than I need. I'm 26 years old. Boom, 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 all the way through life. 20 years later, I wake up today in 2024. That same entry level salary of 48,000 is paying a lifestyle of 29,000 today because of inflation, because too many dollars have been pumped into the system by our Federal Reserve over the past 20 years, which means I've literally lost 39,000, 39%, 39.5%, which is almost 40%. Now, if I want to bring this up, and I'm going to see if I can bring up my calculator so everybody can see that. And if I just wanted to actually calculate this from a dollar standpoint of loss and not just the percentage, yeah, I've lost almost 40% of my income doing what I love, which is teaching students over the past 20 years, because the Federal Reserve keeps pumping money into the system. What's the dollar difference between 48.6 and 29.3? Well, if I do that and see what kind of dollars have been stolen, 29,393. Yeah, over $19,000 has been stolen from my wealth over the past 20 years, only because I wanted to go to work and work hard, motivate students, and be happy. It's been stolen from me in this manner. And that's over a 20-year period. So if you want to look at what that looks like on a yearly basis, you take that 19 grand, 19,207, and divide it by 20, and it'll tell you how much money per year has been stolen from my income and livelihood. Yeah, about 960 a year, almost 1,000 a year. 1,000 a year just because I wanted to teach and I didn't want for anything else, and I thought 48,000 was a pretty good salary to have. Not realizing that I had to stay upwardly mobile, upwardly mobile, upwardly mobile every year for the past 20 years just to keep pace with this stuff. Not good. So this is what's done without our permission. It's done silently. It's done invisibly. We don't see it. All we see is I'm making this much money. How come I can't buy as much stuff the next year, the next year, the next year, the next year? And had they asked our permission for this, if they had the brass cojones, the government, to do this, this is what it would have looked like. They didn't do this. They just took it. They just put the money into the system and stole your wealth. But this is what it would look like if they were asking our permission, smiling with a gun in their hand, pointing it to our heads, because they're going to do it anyway. So we'll take 960. I got to write a check, a $960 check every year to the Federal Reserve to pay for the stuff that they keep inflating with their dollar system scheme that they're putting in. So in 2004, when I started, they would have knocked on my door and they would have said, "Hey, look, we got this war in Iraq that started last year. It's really expensive. The only way we can pay for it is to pump more money into the system. I'm going to need you to write a check for $960 just so we can pay for that." Smile, gun in their hand. What am I going to do? Say no? They'll pull the trigger. So I write them the check, slam the door, get the fuck out of my face. 2005, they knock on my door again. It's like, "Hey, I know last year we came with the Iraq war, but a few years before that, we had this Afghanistan war. That's really expensive. We're no way we're able to afford that with what we're bringing in tax revenue. We're going to have to put more money into the system. I'm going to need you to write another check for $960. Write the check, slam the door, get out of my face. 2006 comes around. "Hey, we had this thing called Hurricane Katrina, which really destroyed New Orleans and those Gulf Coast cities. Yeah, we can't really afford to build the infrastructure for Louisiana and New Orleans. We're going to have to print money in order to pay for it. It made the president look pretty bad. He's getting a lot of bad press. We don't want that. I'm going to need you to write another check for $960 because we got to pump more money into the system." Write the check, slam the door, get out of my face. 2007, they knock on my door as well. "Hey, we got this really cool program called the subprime loan program. It's to help people with bad credit own homes. You don't want to see people with bad credit be homeless, do you? That'd be terrible. I'm going to need you to write a check for $960 because we got to pump more money into the system to actually pay for these subprime loans." Write the check, slam the door, get out of my face. 2008 comes around. "Hey, remember that subprime loan thing? Yeah, well, we had a little bit of a financial crash and we got to bail these banks out because they're too big to fail. And because they're too big to fail, that'll torch the entire economic system. You don't want to see that happen, do you? I need you to write another check for $960 because in order for us to pay these banks that are too big to fail, we got to print more money into the system." 2009 comes around. "Hey, remember that little bank bailout last year? Yeah, well, we gotta get some more bureaucrats and some more agencies to regulate and keep our eye on the financial system, just so we make sure this never happens again. We got to put more money into the system to do it. I'm gonna need you to write another check for $960. 2010 comes around. They knock on my door again. "Hey, it's Obamacare. The only way we can pay for it is to pump money into the system. I need you to write another check for $960. I know you don't have much, but this is what's going to happen to make sure everybody has health care. You don't want to see people suffer without health care, do you?" Write the check, slam the door, get out of my face. And then 2011, and then 2012, and then 2013, year after year after year after year. The question then becomes, when is it going to stop? The truth of the matter is, it doesn't stop. You're being stolen and robbed from by guns in their hands. So, with looking at this, if you want to start putting your foot down, that's the purpose technically of this video, is to show them how we're going to do that. But if your livelihood isn't where you want it to be and you can't figure out why, it's because they're not knocking on your door asking your permission with a smile and a gun in their hand. They're just doing it without you noticing it, and hope you stay ignorant to what they're doing behind the scenes, which is stealing from you. You are being stolen from. There's no other way to put it. Now, how do we forecast and plan to prevent this from happening? We've looked at the past, we've looked at the present. Let's see if we can look at the future, because the question then becomes on part 3 is, what will my income look like during retirement? If we don't think that the next 30 years are going to look like the last 30 years of stolen funny money pumped into the system, you're delusional. So let's get to a point where we can actually look at a number figure that we can plan for, and then let's execute the plan, as I've been saying in all my videos. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to calculate the years until retirement from today's date. If you want to retire in 10 years, great. You want to retire in 20 years, great. I'm going to pick 30. That's just a number that I'm going to go with just for illustrative purposes. And then I'm going to subtract those 30 years from 2024, and I'm going to enter that number in the top left box. 30 years ago is 1994. So what I'm trying to do is calculate what inflated dollars and income would look like from 1994 to today, and then enter today, 2024 in the bottom left box. And then I'm going to think about, what do I need to survive upon that number in my head that would take care of my lifestyle, take care of my family, take care of my bills, whatever it may be, so we don't have to work once we hit that retirement stage. You could, if you'd like, maybe have your own business or side hustle, but you don't want to be depending on a corporation or a side hustle and a grind when you're in your 60s and 70s, um, just to make ends meet and put food on the table when you should be enjoying those golden years with your grandchildren if you have them. So, why are we doing this? We're going to demonstrate what future salary you would need in inflated and stolen dollars in order to retire with dignity. So I'm going to use 5,000 as a baseline. I'm just going to say, all right, if I retire today and all my debts paid off and I don't have to worry about any of that, what would I need to pay all my bills and enjoy the lifestyle that I would like? I pick 5,000 a month. So again, I put 1994 to 2024. That's 30 years of inflation. And if I put the crystal ball out to where what does the next 30 years going to look like? What will the next 30 years look like? 5,000 today, I would have to be bringing in 10,537 per month to enjoy the same lifestyle that $5,000 per month gives me today. Now, I have some clients who make more money and they might have a higher lifestyle. Some of them make 12,000 a month today. Some of them make 17,000 a month today. What will that look like 30 years from now? Well, if you're, making 12 grand a month, which is about 120, 140, 150 a year, $12,000 a month, you would need to be bringing in $25,000 a month 30 years from now based on the inflated dollars of the past 30 years. You forecast what the next 30 years are going to be like by looking at the historical data from the last 30 years. Make the plan, execute it. If you think $12,000 a month is a good lifestyle, you're going to need to be bringing in over $25,000 a month just to enjoy the same lifestyle that 12,000 brings in today. Now, some of my clients make over 17,000 a month. That's 200 grand a year plus. What would 17 grand look like in 30 years of inflationary dollars and funny money being printed? Well, if you want to enjoy a lifestyle of 17 grand today, you're going to have to bring in $35,000 per month because of the inflation system that we're living in. Now, with that being said, and at least wrapping this up, plug your own numbers in to see what lifestyle you're going to need 20, 30, 40 years from now in order to live off of whatever that dollar is. If it's 7,000, it's 7,000. If you plan for a dollar figure today, like 5 grand, and you don't plan for the inflation over the next few years until you retire, you're going to retire broke. That's a guarantee, because 5 grand will be like making 2 grand today. Maybe it'll be like making 1,500 today if we don't plan for this inflationary period over the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And when I say retire with dignity, in your golden years, could be your 60s, could be your 70s, could be your 80s. Not too many 70 and 80-year-olds getting hired these days, but do you see some men and women in their 70s and 80s? Maybe you've seen it recently at Walmart, greeting people when they walk in the door, maybe bagging groceries at your local A&P grocery store or your Publix if you live in Florida. Why do you think they're doing that? Do you think they just enjoy working for Walmart and Publix and A&P and they're just swell companies? They're probably doing it to put food on the table, for one. And they're also doing it because no one sat down with them 20 to 30 to 40 years ago, mapped this kind of plan out for them and told them what to expect. I always recommend don't be the person without a plan or someone who doesn't prepared for this new world of worthless money that we're going to be barging into full steam ahead. And the other analogy I always give is also don't be that person who puts their life savings into a horse and buggy business as you're seeing the first Model T drive down the road. What are the assets that you're going to put your money into going forward? If you were in 1913 versus 2024 and you could see the difference between the two, would you have stuffed dollars under your mattress or would you have stuffed gold coins under your mattress? Based on the purchasing power, it's a no-brainer that it would have been gold coins to set up your own family legacy as you can pass through the years. So what are the assets that you're going to trade your worthless dollars in every paycheck to get something that's a hard asset and tangible that's going to be worthwhile in the future as the dollar keeps getting printed and inflated and making you more broke? So, is it precious metals? Gold and silver is never a bad investment, even a trace amount at a time, even if you don't think you can afford it. Silver is at 25 an ounce, gold's at 2,000 something an ounce. You can buy coins that are 1/10 of an ounce. So you can get a tenth of an ounce of gold for 200 something dollars. That is possible. Is it real estate? For middle America, real estate has always been the real key linchpin for their net worth because of the prices of housing. Now, we do have lulls, we do have gullies, we do have crashes every so often, but for the most part, you can't go wrong with owning property as long as you're doing it in an intelligent manner. You're not doing it haphazardly simply because you're out of Lambos to buy after XRP goes parabolic. Maybe you want to think about putting it into traditional finance products, TradFi. That's always a possibility too. I straddle these two worlds as a licensed traditional economic and financial advisor, but I'm also getting the toe in the other new digital world as well. And I'll be honest with you, the TradFi world does not like the digital world at all. Doesn't like what we're about. Doesn't like the fact that more money can be made and the returns are higher. Doesn't like the fact that the crypto digital world doesn't need T2 or T3 to settle a trade. But think about that as well, because there's value in some of those. I will do videos on those as well, because that's my world and that's my field. Is it XLM? The future of peer-to-peer transactions. Is it XRP? The future of cross-border payments. So, the thing to think about with this is, you're going into the next inflationary period. It's going to be very, very difficult for the rest of this decade. And maybe we'll pull some out of it in the 2030s if we're lucky. What are you going to do to bridge that gap for the really difficult times ahead to get us into the future, to get yourself into the future, to get your family into the future? I have full faith and confidence in everybody in this family, everybody on this call, everybody watching this video. I'm going to be here through the tough times as well, getting us thinking in a different direction. But this is a good framework, these inflationary videos, on how decisions need to be made going forward. There's no point in shoving a bunch of money into precious metals if you think you're just going to trade it back for fiat that's going to be more worthless, because we're used to dealing in fiat and we're used to trading in fiat. We got to get out of the hive mind fiat, because as you can see, over the past 110 years, it's been pretty worthless. What do you think the next 110 years are going to look like if we even make it that far with the US dollar? So good luck, everybody. I'm going to see all of you at the top. I'll be putting more videos out. Giant hugs.